Okay, so thanks everyone for joining us today. And as Mark mentioned, I'm part of the Azure Data Explorer product group team at Microsoft. And just to clarify, Azure Data Explorer, the short form is ADX. Internally, we call it as Gusto, as it uses Gusto query language. So I'll be using Azure Data Explorer, ADX, Gusto, these three terms interchangeably. Before I forget, I thought I'll clarify. And in this session, I'll give you an overview about the product, what it is, when to use it, and in the end, we'll show you some of the demos. But feel free to ask any questions at any point in time. The intent is to give you a better understanding of the product and to get you the ability to get started fast. Okay, so with that, let's get started. So first, if I need to explain what exactly Azure Data Explorer is in one sentence, it's a big data interactive analytics platform, which is mainly meant for append-only streams of data. It caters to all the 3 V's of big data, including high volume, velocity, and variety of data. And the best part is you can ingest structured, semi-structured, and even, we know how to query efficiently on free text form of data. Whatever data, it's a distributed columnar store, and whatever data gets ingested into this platform gets automatically indexed, partitioned, compressed. So you don't need to do that heavy plumbing. It works essentially on the relational query model principles, wherein you can filter, aggregate, join across the data, just like any other relational database. But because it's a big data analytics platform, so we don't have primary key, foreign key sort of relations. It's a fully managed PaaS service, so which comes with the goodness of PaaS, wherein you don't need to manage any infra. You just focus on building the business logic, and all the HA, DR, and a lot of other goodness of PaaS comes with the platform. The key thing is this platform is purpose built for telemetry analytics scenarios. So when I say telemetry, it could be data coming from IoT devices, sensors, logs, metrics, any sort of append-only fast-flowing data scenarios. And the platform has a lot of capabilities baked into it. So for example, wherein you can build the interactive analytics scenarios, you can run the ad hoc exploratory queries in a very, very performant manner. So in big data world, typically we have 2 different types of scenarios. One is when you already know what sort of questions business will be looking answers for, then you pre-build those packaged reports, pre-aggregated reports. Whereas the tricky bit is when you don't even know what sort of questions business will be bombarding at you, and that's when you need a platform which gives you the ability to run such interactive analytics on the fly over, gigabyte to petabyte scale. Okay, so quick look at the scenarios it is mainly meant for. So a couple of scenarios. I'll touch on some of the broad, bigger buckets. So one scenario is for building, as I talked about, the near real-time big data analytics solutions. Another common pattern is where customers use it for building the end-to-end monitoring and observability solutions on top of ADX. The log analytics sort of capabilities. There are a lot of native functions and features which are highly optimized to parse, to run queries on these sort of time series data. The other one is the IoT analytics scenario. We have got a lot of customers, for example, Daimler is ingesting data from all the trucks, running across the globe, trillions of records per day. So those are the sort of scenarios where ADX outshines. And lot of Microsoft partners, the independent service providers, they have built these SaaS solutions on top of this platform. In fact, Microsoft has also built, so I'll cover that in coming slides. With regards to the industry verticals, so different industries, different domains, they use ADX for different purposes. So for example, in retail, one of the very common pattern is around clickstream analytics. And there is a blog also available. If you can subscribe to the ADX tech community blogs, a lot of blogs, reflecting the usage and the patterns and the reference architectures are also there on the Azure Architecture Center, reflecting all of these. And another common pattern, I wouldn't go in depth of each of these, but to touch on some of the other common ones, customers use it as a time series analytics database to build, for example, cloud historian sort of capabilities. And a lot of shipping and logistics companies, they use it for tracking the packages or their vehicles which are doing the delivery, that sort of scenarios. The automotive industry, as I said, they're using heavily for their manufacturing plants, for fleet management scenarios, for geofencing the cabs or the vehicles which are running around the globe. So these are some of the patterns which are best suited for ADX. Okay, first let me give you a bit of a background on the service, how it all started. We started using ADX internally since 2015. It was developed from scratch. It's Microsoft's IP, and it was basically developed and built to handle the massive telemetry generated by Microsoft services and products. And all the services, what you see on the left-hand side, they are sending their telemetry to this platform. So be it the massive SQL ecosystem, VMs, Power BI, and number of other Microsoft services. So think of it like every VM in every Azure Data Center is sending its telemetry to this platform. And we are ingesting petabyte scale of data, more than 85 petabytes of data every day into this platform. So that's why we say confidently it's a proven battle-tested technology. And as I mentioned, that Microsoft and even a lot of our ISVs, they have built SaaS solutions on top of this platform in different domains. For example, in monitoring domain, we have Azure Monitor, Log Analytics Workspace. Same way in the security domain, we have Security Center, Advanced Threat Protection, Sentinel. All these products are built on top of ADX. That's the underlying platform. And after seeing a lot of success internally, the service was made available to the external customers in 2018, went GA in 2019, and from then it's progressing exponentially. These are some of the numbers from our official reports. So as I said, 85 petabytes of data we ingest every day. And in total, it's more exabyte scale what the platform is handling today. So it's massive. Any questions? I'll take a pause before I explain the architecture of ADX. Any questions so far?
None have been posted, but if anybody wants to ask, you can just come off mute, or you can put it in the chat and I can read off your questions.
Okay, let me cover this maybe then. So a quick look on the ADX architecture, what it comprises of. So when you spin up your ADX cluster, either via Azure Portal or ARM templates, the blue box in the middle is what you get as your cluster. Now the components within that, you don't, as a consumer, you don't need to worry about them, but I'm just going to give you a very high level view of what it comprises of. So there are three key components. One is the data management component, which is responsible for the ingestions, be it in batch or streaming mode. The other is the engine component, which has got all the smarts to process the data. And the third one is around the storage. So we store data in a tiered format in ADX. So all your frequently accessed data gets stored onto the local SSD of engine nodes. And that's what we call it as hot store. And rest of the data, whatever gets ingested into ADX, gets stored onto the Azure Blob Storage, which is part of the ADX cluster. The customers don't get access to it. So it's a full package, fully managed package. And there are a lot of policies, commands are available, which you can use to configure pretty easily, saying last 7 days or last 6 months or last 2 years of data should be stored on the local SSDs, which gives you the blazingly fast performance. And whatever you ingest anyways gets stored onto the blob storage. And all the data gets highly compressed, and I mentioned before, gets indexed and partitioned automatically based on the time when it gets ingested. And also we provide the capability, you can export the data out to your own storage in the partitioned Parquet format. So it could be done for the archival purposes or for integrating with any other third-party services if needed. And on the left-hand side, what you see is the list of native connectors to ingest data into ADX. And this list comprises of all the Microsoft services as well as the open source services. So for example, you can use Event Hub, IoT Hub, Kafka to ingest data in a streaming mode. And you can use Azure Data Factory, Spark connector. They can also be used for streaming or batch, either, both are supported, but I'm just giving an example, the common patterns, what customers use it for. And there are APIs available in different languages, which you can use if you want to build your own custom ingestion component using Azure Functions or any other custom applications. On the right-hand side is the list of different services and the methods you can use to tap into the data which is ingested into ADX. So for example, you can build your near real-time dashboards using Power BI, using Grafana, using ADX dashboards, or any other visualization tool. And also you can, for example, we have got a lot of native ML capabilities. So you can either use the native features to detect patterns, do forecasting, anomaly detection within ADX, or you can build your own ML models using some other tools of your choice. It could be Jupyter Notebooks or Databricks or the open source Spark, and export that model into ADX and store data within ADX. That's also possible. And there is native integration with the whole Power platform, including Power Automate, Logic Apps, Power Apps. A lot of our customers, they use this integration to build the automated business flows or to send notifications, alerts in case certain thresholds go beyond limits. So there are a number of ways you can do, and the same thing, there are APIs available which you can use if needed to query or manage the data. Okay, so the APIs also you can use to manage and query the data which is stored in ADX. And also, there are a lot of native integrations with SQL, any flavor of SQL, Cosmos DB, Azure Monitor. So the typical scenarios when customers use that is, for example, you have master or reference data stored in the SQL DB or Cosmos DB, and you want to enrich your KQL queries in ADX to fetch that data from these systems. So that is also very much possible. And yeah, that's pretty much about the architecture. Any questions? Am I going too fast or too?
No, I think this is good. I don't see any questions
Okay.
posted yet, but this is good. Good pace.
Cool. Okay, so now let me share something really interesting, which is quite recent. So recently we have announced a free ADX cluster offer, which helps customers to get started in a seamless manner. So the intent was this is a quick onboarding, so you can get the taste of the service and you can create. You don't need to have Azure subscription, credit card, or anything. The only prerequisite is you need to have the AAD account, the AAD identity, or Microsoft account. One person can create one account, one identity can create one cluster. It's basically a virtual cluster technology, and it's a small 4-core cluster with 8 gig of memory, and you can easily ingest up to 100 gigabyte of data to play around with the platform and do some small trial stuff. And all the core functionalities, they are available in the paid enterprise version, but this is a very good starting point, and you can use this free cluster for at least 1 year. And the way is you can note down aka.ms/adx.free. So if you go to this link, you will be able to create your own free cluster, and then you can do, I'll show you how you can do a quick ingestion and get started. These are some of the product links we have. So for example, you can go to the white paper of ADX if you're interested in the details of the architecture, how it really works, the technology. And there are a lot of different patterns which are published on the Azure Architecture Center, including IoT analytics, big data analytics, or end-to-end monitoring solution. They are given there with all the explanation, and there are free plural site courses available. A lot of hands-on labs are available. You can go and try it out. And there's a help cluster which is available with some of the sample data already there, which you can go and start playing with it. And very soon we are going to release the tutorials also, so that sample data you'll be able to run queries and get started fast. That's pretty much about the quick overview of ADX, and I'll take a bit of a pause before I jump into the demo. And if you have any questions, then I can talk about some of the other advanced stuff, depending on what you would want to discuss.
Great. Before Minni gets into the demo, are there any questions that come to mind? Okay.
Okay, so we'll move on. So to get started with ADX, you can go to the dataexplorer.azure.com. This is the URL for the ADX web UI. And once you go there, you can click on, this gives you all these capabilities. So there is a data management capability, which allows you to ingest data, create tables and other rest of the policies and artifacts with a single click. And the querying capability and the dashboarding, I'll show you. This is in preview at the moment, and this is what the free cluster I was talking about. I already have it, so I can't create another one. But if you go and create your free cluster, after creation, this is how you'll see it and write to it. You can ingest the data and all of that with the help of Wizard. We'll do some of this stuff as part of this demo so you understand how it is. Okay, now let me show you. Once you connect to the dataexplorer.azure.com, the next step would be you will say add cluster. From Azure portal, you pick your cluster URI and say add, And this is how it will look like. So currently I'm connected to all these different ADX clusters. So for example, this is the cluster. The cluster name is Ignite ADX Source, and it is in the East US 2 region. And within this, you can see I've got occupancy database, which has got these tables, the staging table and the actual transform table with functions. Functions is just a way to wrap your reusable code. And rather than writing those queries again and again, you call the function. It could be a parameterized function or whatever is the scenario. And you can also create materialized views to pre-aggregate the data and get much better performance. We'll probably talk about it if time permits. Now let me show you a very quick demo of how things work within ADX. Now, for example, I've got this staging IoT raw data table, which is getting data from Azure storage. So this is a simulated data, the sensors data, the IoT sensors data, which is coming, and this is the KQL language, name of the table or operator, and summarizes just like a group by, where I'm doing the count and min and max of the NQ time. So I've got 40 million rows in this table, and the data starting from 2019 till 2022. Okay, so this is a tiny bit of data just to show you a sample, the demo. And now let's query this data, what is there in it. Now here you can see the staging table has got all these columns, and there are columns with the dynamic data type. So dynamic data type is what gives you the ability to ingest your JSON payload as it is. So for example, this is a very complex, simple one, but you can ingest very complex JSON payloads with nested arrays and everything and parse within ADX at a very, very, in a very performant manner. So this JSON payload, for example, has got battery level, humidity, temperature for the sensors. Now, ADX gives you two capabilities. One is you can either query the JSON attributes straight away without parsing it. And for example, here in this query, what I'm doing is I'm saying extend is basically used to create a calculated column, where I'm saying create a new temp column and get the body is the name of this column and get the temperature, the temp JSON attribute from that. And this is just to give you an idea on how you can query the JSON attributes without parsing it. The next option, which is widely adopted one, is if your data set is small to medium range, this on the fly parsing works. But if you are dealing with billions of records, then it's always better to parse it for better performance. Now I have parsed this data set, and this is how the parsed data set looks like in the respective columns. How did I do that in ADX world? So what I did, I created this function where I've written the parsing logic, and there is a feature called update policy. So I created this destination table and applied this update policy where I'm saying the source table is staging IoT raw data. Whenever ingestion, any data gets ingested into this table, execute this function and move the data to the parsed data based on the logic written in this function, move it to the destination thermostats table. So this is about how you do the transformations, parsing, or enrichment of your data within ADX using update policy. So update policy, you can think of it like a SQL trigger, that sort of capability. Now let's look at the interactive analytics capability, how you can use ADX for time series analytics scenarios. Now, as part of this query, what I'm doing is I'm filtering the data for last 3 days for a specific device ID, aggregating the data on the fly and binning it into the 10 minutes resolution. And when you are writing these queries, you get full IntelliSense, and you can easily write the queries with with IntelliSense. So for example, here, let's look at the average temperature for a device in 10 minutes resolution. Now let's move on. Then the next bit is the same data set, the same query I'm expanding further and further to show you some of the capabilities. Now in this query, I'm trying to find the missing values and I'm trying to generate the time series out of the randomly generated data where I'm using the, So where I'm using the make series operator to find the average temperature. And now here you can see there are a lot of missing values in this data set. Now to fill, this is a typical time series IoT scenario. Now to fill those missing values, what I'm doing, I'm expanding the same query with the make series. Make series is our native operator. Whatever in the red you see, they are native ones. And I'm using the native function called series fill linear. This function gives you the ability to perform linear interpolations, so you can fill in the missing values and get a much smoother chart. Okay. Now, based on now you got the linear interpolation of your time series data done. Now let's look at another capability. Same query. What I'm doing is I'm using the series fill linear function and trying to forecast the data for next 3 days based on the last 9 days data. So here you can see the last 3 days, this is the base chart. There was no data, so there's a straight line, but the red chart that has done the forecasting based on the past data set. So these functions, these are the native capabilities I was talking about. We do have Python and R plugin, which you can use to write your Python and R code also in ADX and do even you can create the ML models within ADX. Okay, so in this, as part of this one, I just wanted to show the last thing. So here the same thing, rather than forecasting function, I'm expanding the same query and using the decompose anomalies native feature to find the anomalies in this data set. So any deviations in your data pattern based on whatever thresholds you set, it gives you the anomalies. So you can just focus on those anomalies and see what's happening during those dates. So these are some of the cool capabilities. And again, this one is a simple aggregation to find max, min, and all those values. You can render column charts. Now let me show you, for example, let's take an example of this anomalies chart. If I need to build the ADX dashboard, how I can do that? You select the query, you go here, say pin to dashboard, you give the query name, let's say test, and I say create new dashboard just to show you, and you say pin to dashboard. That's it. So that's how you create your queries and pin those onto the dashboard. And I'll show you something which looks better. So for example, this is a dashboard which I've built on top of sample logs just by pinning the queries the way I showed you before. And you can also do the parameterization of your dashboards. And if I say edit, for example, I can go here, edit the style, select the different visuals, all that you can do. You can also drag and drop the visuals, move them here and there, redesign whatever needed, right? So I'll just discard it. I don't want to mess my dashboard. Okay, so these capabilities are there. Now, also you can do the parameterization of the dashboard, wherein, for example, here I have got this is the sample logs, the sys logs ingested into ADX. And to do the analysis on one of the typical questions we get from a lot of customers is, hey, my end users are not capable of writing KQL. So what we suggest to them is your IT team writes the KQL queries, build such parameterized dashboards, and your end users can go and monitor and search across the different values. So in IoT world, for example, you can search across device IDs, tags. Here I'm going to search on the log messages, for example. This is a parameterized, message is parameterized. So let's say I am going to say failed, and it is going to filter my data based on wherever it finds failed in the log messages. And you can also have the time filters in your dashboards, whether you want last 7 days, 2 days, all your tiles will change accordingly. So that's pretty easy how you can do the dashboarding with ADX. And the similar way, the same queries you can use and build the dashboards using Power BI or Grafana. Any thoughts, questions, folks, before I show you something else?
I see Nick has his hand raised. You have a question, Nick?
Hi, yes, thank you. First of all, sorry to hear about the storms. I know New South Wales is getting hit pretty hard, so hopefully everything's okay.
Yeah.
We are using a lot of Microsoft technologies, data warehouse, Synapse. We're using HD Insight and Spark and Databricks, all the way over onto the other side, in the Azure side where I'm at. We're doing a lot more now with log analytics and app insights and a lot of telemetry data monitoring. But just to recap what you just did, with all the inputs that Data Explorer can talk to, you just searched for failed and got all log results for all failures across anything that the system is looking at. Like with the parameterized queries, once that's built in KQL, you can build a dashboard that we're trying to look for the monitoring solution for the monitoring solutions, I guess. And there's a big SCADA component where we're definitely working with the data stream like you just did was impressive. But I was just blown away by finding failures across logs, across multiple inputs simultaneously. So theoretically, you could do like ISV stability monitoring all in one place. It looks like this touches on a lot of core components of log analytics and stuff like that. Is this just the system to unite all systems, or I'm trying to find out where it would fit in the stack that we have. I'm very impressed with what I've seen so far. Just want to understand if I have its position in the solar system of Microsoft products. Understood correctly? Yeah.
Okay. See, as I said, the strength of ADX is near real-time analytics scenarios.
Yeah.
It's super fast, and wherever you have append-only stream, it's a immutable database, right? So you can ingest data, you can insert, you can delete, but you cannot update the same record. For the update scenarios, we suggest, for example, you can use materialized views, or you can use the functions like argmax, and we have some native functions to cater to the update scenarios also. But if you have got a lot of frequent single row update scenarios, then this is not the right platform. So there is a difference between transactional and operational databases versus analytical database, which ADX is. Right. So if you have any append-only stream of data and the IoT analytics or log analytics scenarios, ADX is the way to go, I would say. And this is what Microsoft uses, and we solve a lot of problems using this platform. For example, let me show you one thing, which will give you an idea of the scale. So for example, and by the way, the dashboard which I showed, that was just a tiny bit of, tip of the iceberg to show you the messages, how you can search. You can even search across different tiles. It all depends how you write your KQL queries, depending on the requirements, right? So for example, this is the internally query language, and there's a bit of a history on that too. So I have got a database called Cuscus, basically Custo on Custo, which we use to manage all the telemetry we collect from the ADX clusters that are deployed across the globe. So there is one table called Custo Logs. This is our live production table, which we use for troubleshooting any sort of issues, the logs which we collect based on that. So this single Custo Logs table has got more than, you can see,
46 trillion. Yeah.
Yes.
That's amazing. All right.
46 trillion records into a single table. And now in this query, let me show you the data size, what we are handling. So the single table has got more than 23 petabytes of data.
Incredible.
And in the and in the hot store, we have got more than 8 petabytes of data. So, and let me show you. Sorry, you were saying something?
Oh, no, just that's what you said earlier, the operational transactional database versus something like a SCADA environment would be a great fit for this, right? Where it is, as I understand it, immutable data, you're recording, like meteorological data or machine operating parameters. They're not going to come back and okay, yeah, that's.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of customers, see, again, depends on the scenario. I'm working with so many different use cases, like utilities customers, they are ingesting data from the energy meters. There are a lot of manufacturing customers, they are ingesting data from their manufacturing plants. Even, as I said, some customers are trying to build the cloud historian capability on top of ADX because they find it's another biggest strength of the platform is the cost effectiveness. It's super cost effective.
That's
I
great.
would suggest, yeah, we can probably have a look at one of the sample if needed. So cost effectiveness is speed, cost effectiveness, and a lot of native capabilities to parse and run interactive analytics. These are the core strengths of the platform, I would say.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
And here, like in this query, you can see, for example, I was just showing, I'm showing the records that are ingested per second into the platform. We have got more than 13 million records per second ingestions into this cluster. And then you can go on. And for example, here, I'm going to run this query to say over the last 15 minutes, filter on the errors and aggregate and show me in the 1 minute resolution bucket. And these are all the queries which I'm running on the trillions of records, the 47 or 48, I forgot the number where we are running on. So, so this is how it's meant for massive scenarios. And one of another differentiator, I would say, you mentioned about you're using a lot of other HD Insight and other services. So Spark clusters, HD Insight, I don't know which service you're using in that, but typically you use different platforms for long running batch scenarios. ADX is for near real-time scenarios, and based on my experience, I've seen we at times wrongly bucket the long-running scenarios with the near real-time scenarios. For example, if your data volumes you're seeing the performance is pretty good, right? So when I'm running, for example, let me sorry, so when I'm running these queries, these are on the 46 trillion records. But if you have got few billion records, then even the long running scenarios which you are doing, for example, they could work pretty well on ADX, which you would be doing in R and some other platform could potentially be done in seconds in ADX. So
that's great. No, I think we're trying to find a home in that regard. We have our toe in a lot of different technology pools, but with the SCADA stuff, there's a long running scenarios like failure rate analysis on parts, but more immediate stuff that would, I think, benefit in both cases from this. This is great. Thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure.
Minni, we're also getting a request from a couple of people wondering if there's a Power BI example that you might use.
I can try to. I have lots of Power BI reports. I just need to check if something is currently, 1 minute, I need to. So Power BI, we have got heaps of examples, blogs, documentation is there. You can, there were some recent blogs which we shared in terms of the tips and tricks, how you can optimize your Power BI reports with ADX. So we do support parameterized queries, wherein, like, if you are using direct query mode, rather than bringing all the data onto Power BI, you can send the filters to ADX and get the filtered data. You can create the parameterized functions, use materialized views, all that stuff. Let me see if I can find something quick. The Power BI report. Any other questions, Mark, you have in the meantime?
Not posted here, but I'll continue to moderate.
Okay.
Mark, a quick question while she's looking. Was there a second session that you guys were hosting tonight? Was that for a different user group? Something at 8 p.m. instead of 7 p.m.?
So this got rescheduled. The speaker, it would also be on ADX. It's from one of the leaders of Minni's team, and but he ended up having to. He's in the air right now. He's flying somewhere, so we had to make a change, and Minni agreed to step up and take over.
Okay, that's wonderful. Yeah,
So,
no, thank you. Yep.
And he would have been speaking from Israel, and it would have been 4 a.m. if we started at our normal time. So he was willing to be speaking to us at 5 a.m., but instead he was on a flight at 5 a.m.
It's quite the calendar invite to send out, touching on all time zones.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So initially you had scheduled it with Uri, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So yes, because of the different time zones, we had to change. Sorry, I need to search for it, but there are lots of, let me open. So you can go to the Azure Data Explorer blogs on the tech community, where you can actually see there are a lot of blogs written on different scenarios, and there are a lot of recent ones on the Power BI also. How you can use date time columns with Power BI. Power BI typically, for example, gives you the date filters, but how you can include even the time with that for time series scenarios. And you can also I'm going to show you this. If you go and search for and I have actually written one hands-on lab also. So you can go to our documentation, which talks about how you can visualize data using import or direct query Power BI modes, and the dynamic M parameters I was talking about, and the best practices around Power BI. And also we have the hands-on lab, which has a sample of the Power BI where you're streaming the data from Event Hub to ADX, and then the Power BI report is also there. The template is there. So you can use that for setting this up.
Okay, great. That's great to have those resources available and pointed out. Thank you.
And I think I can probably talk about, these are yet to be updated, but yeah, so this one, this is an old slide, but Nick, I think you were asking a question, right? So where it fits into the whole world. So ADX is also now part of the Synapse family. So the Synapse has got 3 key engines now. One is the SQL pools, another is the Spark pools, and the third one is the Data Explorer pools now. So the idea of having ADX integrated into Synapse is to give you the capability. There you go. So this is the one. So Azure Synapse Data Explorer. So you can see along with the SQL and Spark, we have got Data Explorer also included. So this the intent was to give you the seamless capability to run telemetry analytics within this broader Synapse ecosystem.
No, that's great. That actually takes a step out or a couple steps out for us. So this is really good. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes. So if you are using Synapse, you can easily create the Data Explorer pool.
Is this something that if we're looking at like well-architected framework, is Microsoft? I mean, the technology's been around for a few years since GA, so this is probably something that's incorporated into that assessment.
Yes, absolutely. So well-architected framework is a broader abstracted framework which talks about the different pillars, and they all align with ADX2. Yes.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's awesome to hear. Okay.
Yes. And let me show you like something. Okay, I forgot to talk about the quick free cluster ingestions. 1 second. Okay, so if you go and create your own free cluster, the very simple thing, you create your new database after creating the free cluster. That is just on the front page, very easy. You will identify on your own, and then you right click and say ingest new data. And when you say ingest new data, here I'm saying, let's say test table. And now in this wizard, you can select from where do you want to select ingest the data, blob or local file or ADLS Gen2 container. Just for demo, I'll show you. This is what we call as one-click ingest. So I've got this sample IoT CSV, and I'm going to ingest this data. Okay. So here you go, and it gives you the wizard wherein you can change the format if at all needed, and it automatically generates all the stuff for you. And here I can go and say, okay, this column I don't want, this column I want to change the data type and all that stuff once I'm happy. And it also generates, the commands, the create table and mapping commands here. So if you are ingesting, for example, a lot of data and you want to create the table mapping automatically, this is one of the tricks. So you pick one sample file. It could be JSON, Parquet, whatever format it is. There are multiple formats we support. You can see here. If you're using JSON, I would suggest to use multi-JSON because that has the backward compatibility with the single line JSON. So it covers both complex and single line one. So when you copy from here your stuff and then do those big ingestions if needed. And then I say just the start ingestion, and that's it. So this is one of the easiest way to get started with ADX. And then you say from here, take 10, and it will open the query console, and you can go and start writing your queries. So if you have your day-to-day stuff, your any sort of small, simple stuff, you can load into ADX and start playing with the system. Okay, any other questions? And this is an example. This reminds me the SQL plugin we were talking. So for example, if your reference or master data is stored into the SQL server, this is how you can use the SQL plugin, get the data from the SQL DB. And now as part of this query, this web logs is a table in ADX. And this app data is the variable which is filled with the data from SQL. And you can join both the data sets in a single query. This is how you build your federated queries across 2 different platforms. So yeah, we do support cross-cluster, cross-database queries.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Can you expand on some of the differences between Azure Data Explorer and Synapse?
Okay, so Azure Data Explorer is part of Synapse. So Synapse is our broader analytics umbrella, which has got 3 key engines within that: SQL, Spark, and now ADX. So ADX, Azure Data Explorer, short form is ADX. The Data Explorer pools are also part of the Synapse. And I just mentioned a few minutes ago, maybe you joined late. So the key capability what ADX gives you is to do the telemetry analytics seamlessly within the whole broader Synapse umbrella.
All right, thank you.
We also have a question just regarding starting price. Now that's a very general question, right? You've given a good description of the free get started offer to kick the tires, but range of pricing that an organization might be committing to, say on a monthly basis?
Sure. Yes, let me show you that. I can show you, okay, let's go to the Azure pricing calculator, maybe that's easier. Okay, so we go here, I type Azure Data Explorer and okay, so how ADX is priced, these are the key things which we look at when you do the pricing. So first thing you need to do is you need to specify how much data you are collecting per day, and you need to provide the number of days which you will be using for frequently querying. That becomes your hot cache or hot store days, the data which gets stored onto the local SSD. Based on this number, system calculates how many, whether you need compute optimized or storage optimized queue. We have got different SKUs available. And the total retention. By default, the total retention is 100 years. And the compression ratio, on an average, I mean, we have seen majority of this is the 7 is the default, but it could go even way higher. A lot of IoT customers, they get more than 10 times compression, but the lowest I've seen is around 5 or so. So the best way, what I showed you, is if you have a sample file, ingest that using one-click ingest and see the compression ratio, what you get. But otherwise, you can easily safely go with 7 or 5x compression for pricing. So yeah, so this is giving you a monthly cost for 100 GB of ingestions per day. Monthly cost is $649 US in total. For these, if you want, if somebody has some specific scenario, you want me to key in some numbers, we can key in right now and look at the pricing. So whatever you're paying for some other product, if in case you want to compare. And when you do this pricing over here, another key thing is if the auto select engine instances is on, the system will automatically pick the SKU for you depending on the numbers you have keyed in on top. If you want to select SKU of your choice, you turn this off, and then you can choose any of the SKUs, whether you want the storage optimized or you want the compute optimized one.
So if anybody has a scenario they want to look at, we could do it quickly. I see Nick T he thinks he misheard what the default retention was. What is the default retention period?
Sorry, was that a question, Mark? I didn't get that.
Yes.
Yeah. What was the question?
What is the default retention period?
Okay, so the default retention period is 100 years.
Okay.
Okay. That's what he thought he heard.
I was like, maybe she said days, and I just, that's great. Fantastic. Yeah.
No, it's 100 years. Yes. And these are all retention policies, which you can easily change within your ADX. So for example, if I go here, I can go and say dot show table. I don't know why it's okay. I'll just sorry. Yeah, dot show table, raw metrics, policy, retention. So it will show you the retention policy. Currently it's null, so it goes the default, which is 100. Same way, and you can use the alter table command to set the retention policy. I can say dot alter and table and set the retention is equal to whatever days I want, 100 days or anything. And same way, you can also change and see the caching policies for your cluster. So the caching policies also, which is basically how much data the last 10 days or last 90 days or 2 years, what data you want to store on the local SSD, which gives you the blazingly fast performance. And there are ways to even query the cold stored data in a very clever and cost efficient manner. There is a feature called hot caching windows, which gives you the ability, let's say I want to run queries. I've got an incident in my org and I want to run queries for November of 2018. So rather than bringing last 3-4 years of data into the hot cache, which is going to be very expensive, you can just say the hot caching window you can set as November 2018, and it will bring that months of data into the hot cache. You run your queries, done and dusted. Wow. So rather than doing that, there are a number of ways you can optimize.
That was great. Our hypothetical, I mean, kind of worst case scenario is 5-year retention. So that was going to be my example, but that's great.
Yeah. So, and there are a lot of enterprise grade security features as well. I'm not sure how are we doing on time, Mark. I can probably touch on these if time permits.
Sure, we have time. Yep.
Okay. So there are a lot of security features also in ADX. So for example, the pretty standard ones, you can create the ADX cluster within your own VNet, or you can use private link to connect. And it is very well integrated with AAD for the role-based access control. And the policies which I was just showing you, same for the policies, same for the role-based access control. You can have it at the DB level or at the table level. And in regards to the data, you can also have row level security also if needed. And we do support the data masking. For example, if you have got some sensitive data, you can secure it as credit cards or some other customer email ID and all that stuff. You can PII data can be masked. And from the GDPR compliance perspective, we have got a feature called purge data. Now, this purging feature is this is specifically for the GDPR compliance. It's a very expensive operation, so we recommend do it only when really needed. So the data gets removed based on the purging policy, and otherwise the data retention policy takes care of it. So for example, you said your requirement is to retain data for 5 years. Once you set it, after 5 years, it will automatically remove it. Or third possibility is we do support delete command. So you can delete the data based on certain conditions. If at all, for example, by mistake you ingested the corrupted data, the delete command will do the soft delete of your data. And yeah, so that soft delete operation behind the scenes, we keep checking. Once we see bulk of the data is soft deleted, we clean it up. So that's also possible. And the data gets encrypted in flight or as well as rest. We do support the customer managed keys as well. And from the logging and monitoring perspective, you will see there are quite a lot of extensive monitoring capabilities. We have got native integration with Azure Monitor. You will be able to see the insights blade on the portal, and which gives you all the metrics around how your CPU is doing, cache is doing, ingestions are doing. You know, every metric is given in quite in depth. And we do support auditing. You can run .show commands and queries command on ADX cluster, which shows you which user ran what queries from what application, all those details. And from HADR perspective, we have got a lot of native features. First of all, it's a completely distributed database. So even if one node goes down, it doesn't impact. It will impact performance, but you can also have your auto scale feature enabled. So it can automatically scale if you have peaks and troughs. So that's one. And we do support availability zones. So you can, if you select availability zones, your hardware and your infra gets distributed across different data centers. So you get coverage if at all one data center goes down. And in regards to DR, there are a lot of other strategies you can build. We have it in our business continuity documentation, which talks about you can have dual ingestions in 2 different regions, paired regions, or you can have active, passive cluster. All those capabilities are there. You can export data, configure the continuous export to storage in a different region. That storage is could be geo-redundant storage. So if something happens, depending on your RPO, RTO requirements, you can either ingest that data when something happens. If RPO, RTO are quite stringent, then you can always have dual ingestions in both the clusters. And lastly, we have the follower cluster and follower database pattern, which is basically we have a native integration with Azure Data Share Service. And this pattern was created for 3 key scenarios. So for example, you can do if you want to share data within your org or with some third parties, that's when you can create the follower database. And you can also follow the table level or database level, depending on the scenarios. And the other scenario is where you would want to, for example, segregate your read and write workloads. So there could be scenarios you are getting ingestions 24/7, but reports you run at a specific time period. So the reporting could be done of another follower cluster, and that can be turned off rest of the times. So there can be a number of strategies you can build. You can pause the cluster, resume it when needed. So a lot of flexibilities there. We do have auto stop capability, wherein if we see the cluster was not used for a certain period, it will automatically stop it to save cost. So these are some of the capabilities in regards to the security features. Questions?
I don't see any questions posted. If you have any, you can either unmute or enter into the chat.
Does Sentinel integrate well with this? Or is that slightly
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so Sentinel, as I said, is built on top of ADX, and I can show you. You asked a great question, actually.
Thanks. Yeah,
So,
sorry, maybe if I missed that. That's good to hear. Yeah.
yes, I didn't cover that. So, so Sentinel is very well integrated with ADX, and it is actually ADX is the backend for Sentinel. So Sentinel is a solution in security domain which is built on top of it, and a lot of customers, they use ADX for long-term retention of data from Sentinel. So, for example, I'm not sure if you have seen this. This is there in the documentation also. We have a reference architecture available on the Azure Architecture Center. So from Sentinel to ADX, you can build your automated pipeline. So a lot of customers, they do ingestion from data sources to Sentinel or ADX in parallel, could be one pattern. And another one is from Sentinel, you can configure the export to Event Hub, which has a native connector to ADX. So this is a very common pattern for persisting your, for having the long-term retention of your data in ADX, because ADX is way more cost-effective than Sentinel because of the obvious reasons. This is a vanilla platform. This is a specialized SaaS solution.
Wonderful answer. Thank you. Yeah, so much. That's great. And I apologize. I stepped away. I missed the original topic. So thank you for covering it again.
No worries. As I said, I didn't cover the Sentinel part, so I'm glad you asked this question.
Great. I don't see any other questions in chat. Do you have any closing comments, Minni, or do we call it a wrap?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much from my side. But feel free to reach out to us if my email ID is there on the screen. If you have any further questions or scenarios or doubts wherein you would want help or brainstorming, I'll be happy to chat. And these are the links I already shared. I believe, Mark, you'll be sharing the deck post session, so they can easily go and look at the reference architectures and all the rest of the ways how you can reach out to the whole product group. Our team is spread across the globe, so you can write on Stack Overflow, or we have got a lot of videos available on our ADX YouTube channel too for you to refer.
Thanks,
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you so much, Mark, and thanks all for joining us.
Sure.
Great. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks so much, Minni.